Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Weekly AI Yap, where I will just kind of be talking about this week's news in AI, my thoughts on it, and just kind of talk for like 20 to 30 minutes to just kind of give you the rundown of what's happened this week in AI. Now, of course, this week it was actually a pretty quiet week, all things considered, mainly because the US election happened, and no AI company wants to get overshadowed by the U.S. election, and B, release something that could potentially be seen as swinging the U.S. election, right? Because people voted on the U.S. for the U.S. president on the 5th, and then it was tallied through the night and whatnot. And in essence, people just tended to be a little bit quieter about the news, right? Now, obviously, some news did come through, and it was mainly just from indie hackers, not really big companies. Right, and so there's obviously some big company stuff going on, but this is stuff like the nano GPT speedruns, better optimizers in that space and whatnot, really cool research, but no major models that can help application developers and whatnot, right? Mainly because all of those really cool stuff is they're waiting until the dust settles from the US election, and next week will probably be a lot bigger, right? Because next week it's rumored that Gemini's computer use, which Google's calling Jarvis, will come out. It's rumored O1 full is rumored to come out pretty soon, so I think they'll probably wait until Google releases their thing to release it. Gemini 2 is rumored to come out next week, so I think the rumors are Gemini 2 is going to come out either next week or the week after, and then O1 full is going to come out basically immediately after that, because OpenAI loves to steal Google's thunder, right? And so, in essence, there's just a whole bunch of stuff going on there, and, it's kind of a whole bunch of effectively just let's pause real quick to let the U.S. election happen, because this thing is, right, the U.S. election has a pretty big sway on the AI space, right? And so obviously I want to keep this podcast AI related, and I'm not going to dwell on the U.S. election too much, right? But in general, nobody wants to be seen as swinging the U.S. election, and also nobody wants to be seen as they don't get overshadowed by the U.S. election, right? And so, yeah. Though, of course, there is some news that come out, right? So, Ollama now officially supports vision models, right? Which is great. Now you have better accessibility to local vision models, right? So you can, boot up Ollama, and my vision models is Llama 3.2, right? It has support for Llama 3.2 now. And so what you can do is you can just, boot up, Llama 3.2 on Ollama and then, run it locally, and it's, nicely quantized, and they do all of that, right? And so they kind of do a whole lot of work there. They do a bunch of stuff, and it's basically now you can download it locally. And so what you're able to actually do with this is basically do stuff like vision rag, right? And so you're able to basically take the Ollama model and just be hey, let me do rag on this model. Let me on this image, right? And so you're able to be hey, let me upload all my photos of I don't know, just upload all my photos, and then when you're trying to search for that one photo of a vacation you had, you search location, and then you find the closest vector and do vector similarity, cosine similarity, and you find the closest thing and you're there, right? You effectively have you can effectively do better vision rag. You can have models that understand images. You can kind of do all of that locally now, and don't have to go to the cloud. Now, obviously, you could have done it locally previously because Meta has official stuff for those models. It just now it wasn't quantized. It wasn't easily available in the Ollama pipelines, because Ollama is super easy, right? It's super easy to just run stuff in Ollama. It's super easy to do stuff, and so now you effectively can get more stuff going on, right? And so it's you have a whole bunch of stuff going on there, and people are just kind of doing a whole people that this is very new, and people can kind of being slow, but it's a whole bunch of stuff, it's that type of stuff where it's minor improvements this week, right? You have the rumors of the upcoming Qwen 2.5, basically they confirmed the sizes of the Qwen 2.5 coder, right? Because Qwen, they make code models, right? So they make because they make the regular models, and they have code fine-tuned ones, and so they confirm the entire list of sizes, and it's 0.5b, 1.5b, 3b, 7b, 14b, 32b, and it doesn't actually go higher than that. They're not making a 70 or 120b code model, right? Because the thing is, I think people have realized that it's not as useful to make just massive models, right? If Qwen were to make a 1.8 trillion parameter mixture of experts model like GPT-4, could it be a good model? Yes, it could probably be a really good model. the problem with that is that it's really expensive and you get very minor gains, right? Like, I'd argue that the Quen, like the more recent Quens, right? Like, what they're trying to do is effectively bring the efficiency frontier down. And everybody's trying to bring the efficiency frontier down, right? Like, the only people who have been able to beat the efficiency of the Quen 0.5, 1.5, and 3B, like Quen 2.5, is effectively small LM from Hugging Face, right? Like people are like not benchmarking against Quen because it's like a model that's really hard to benchmark against. It's like a very hard model to actually do stuff with, and it's to like beat. I mean, it's a very hard model to beat, and so people are like, well, it's not Quen. It's new enough that people will think we did the benchmark beforehand, and it's like people are avoiding it, right? But like Quen is like really good, right? And so obviously they're claiming that Quen 2.5 coded 32B, which is yet to come out, is better, is like matching GPT-4o, which like that is a little bit of a, it's like a little bit of like it's an exaggeration. Like it's an exaggeration. Like I don't think it's as good as 4o in code, but maybe it is. Maybe it's good, as good as 4 in code, but like really bad at everything else, which honestly also makes sense, right? And so, in essence, what we kind of have to wait for it to come out, right? Like wait for Quen 2.5, Coda 32B to come out and all of that, right? And so, like, the thing is, these models, they're just getting smaller faster, but we're kind of, again, I said this last time, we're kind of hitting like close to like a ceiling, right? Like I think we're hitting like a point where the capabilities of these models is not really accelerating super fast, right? And like Anthropic kind of saw this, right? Because they didn't release Claude 3.5 Opus, even though they said they would, because I think what happened is not that it was too capable, right? Like there's no world where Claude 3.5 Opus is too capable to release. But there is a world where Claude 3.5 Opus is not like good enough to release, right? Because people, Claude Opus was like, what was it, like $75 per million tokens? Like it was crazy expensive. Like it was like an insanely expensive model. And you expect like, oh, you're paying that price, it should be better than the $15 per million token model of 3.5 Sonnet. And it wasn't. Right? Like well, maybe not, but it wasn't like that much better at that much price. Like, and so they're like, what's the point? Right? Like the new Sonnet is better, it looks like. And the new Haiku, they released the new Haiku, they like increased the price by like 5x. Right? Like they just said, it's $5 per million tokens, take it or leave it. Like, I don't get it. Like I straight up do not get Anthropic's way of doing stuff. Because what they've basically done is they've basically took the models, it's like, oh, we're peaking on performance, there we go. Because like the new Sonnet is like not better than the old 3.5 Sonnet. Like I don't know. Like in my testing, it doesn't feel like a bump. It feels different, but not like better. Like for code, it feels slightly worse, but for a bunch of other stuff, it feels slightly better. And I don't know. It's just like a strange model. It's like I don't think it's that much better than like than what came before. Right? I don't think it's that much better than what came before. And so you kind of have this situation where you just kind of have a whole bunch of stuff going on, right? Where it's just like they're kind of peaking on capability, right? Like, again, we're hitting like the point where you kind of probably need bigger scale to do stuff, and nobody wants to train a 20 trillion parameter model. Now, the rumors are OpenAI is training a model of that size, and that's GPT-5. But again, that's going to take forever to train, and I also don't know if that rumor is true, right? Like, I think fundamentally most of what's going on here is we're hitting capability limits, and people are like, if we get more efficient at this, we can make the model smaller, and so because if you imagine the curve, previously it was like it was like kind of linear and it like steeped off at the top end of the model scale. We effectively just brought the steep section closer, and so we're still peaking. Right, we're still peaking at a point. It's just we're just getting to that point with smaller and smaller models, right? Because prior to GPT-4 being released all the way back in 2023, like that was like pretty long ago, like almost 2 years ago at this point. Yeah, March 2023. Yeah, like 18 months ago. Like for the past 18 months, we've not really had like a leap and bound improvement like from 3.5 to 4, right? Like going from any of the GPT-3 class models 3.5 to 4 is like massive leap. We haven't seen that since, except the timeline between GPT-3 and 4 was like 18 months roughly. Like we should have seen one of those really high level ones. Obviously US election and whatnot, but like OpenAI is clearly investing in O1 as the main type of model and whatnot, and trying to do reasoning engines. But I think that's probably because they've also internally hit a wall, right? They've hit a wall internally, and then they can't improve the capabilities. Anthropic has also probably hit a wall internally and they can't improve capabilities. Google's already kind of trying to do stuff at a small scale and crazy long context, right? Google's kind of given up on reaching the next big leap, right? I'm not saying they've given up on the next big leap. Their next big leap is AGI, right? But Google's trying to extend context window right now, and it's a whole bunch of stuff, which is people. I think the companies have realized there's a performance peak here. Why spend 100 times the compute to get 10% improvement or twice the improvement, right? There's no point in doing that, because now instead of paying $5 a million tokens, you're paying $500 per million tokens, and it's not worth it. At that price, you hire a person. There is no world where a model is where you pay $500 per million tokens and the model is economical, right? There's no world where that happens. The only way that model becomes economical is if you use it to train a smaller model. And if we're hitting these performance limits on these smaller models, it's like a strange situation, right? Now, obviously, if you have a much larger model, you can distill it, it's a lot better to work with. But again, you have all the performance issues, and it's just the models are kind of doing the model things. Now, of course, I'll probably leave this week a little bit short because there wasn't that much news. But we're hitting these performance limits, and I think a bunch of the open source people kind of had it right, because open source has been constraint limited, right? It's compute limited. Sorry, they have a compute constraint. And so I think fundamentally the thing is, basically all of the open source models, they've been compute constrained this entire time, and so they've just been efficiency. And now that the big labs can't just be ha ha ha, let's throw infinite money at the problem, go away. They're just throwing the money in, it's just they're hoping the problem leaves. And by money, I mean GPUs, which are money. And so they're just they can't do that anymore. They have to engage in the efficiency bump. And at that point, open source is just they'll eat the lunch. Because if open source, they've been training under the efficiency requirements. They've been training under all of that, right? They, you know that one meme that's while you were doing other stuff, I was studying the blade, and it's now your time of need, you come and ask me for my help and whatnot. It's kind of that situation, where closed source has been I'm gonna go spend money. I'm just gonna spend money. And open source is we must do efficiency. Because here's the thing. Basically, all of AI up until GPT-3 and whatnot was in the open source. Right? You could expect open source models everywhere. Right? Because here's the thing. The capabilities weren't high enough, and there wasn't enough money interest. Right? Now, obviously, there was some stuff that was closed source. Right? Google translates model weights are closed source and whatnot. But making Google Translate gave us transformers, right? We got the transformer architecture from Google trying to do machine translation. And so it's the research was open. Maybe the weights weren't as open, but the research was open. A bunch of the data sets were open. Now the data sets are closing up, the research is closing up, and I think we can all kind of pit that on OpenAI, right? When, I think it was Francois Cholet, maybe it was the other ArcAGI guy, but it was one of the ArcAGI guys, and they were basically just talking about how OpenAI has effectively slowed down AGI by 5 years. Now, I think looking at what's happening now, you're kind of seeing that. Because whenever OpenAI does research, Anthropic and Google don't know about it. Meta doesn't know about it. And so, let's assume OpenAI does research on something. Then Anthropic does the exact same research on the exact same topic, because they don't know OpenAI did that research already. Google also does that same research, but they did it in the exact same way, but on TPU instead. Oh, fancy research, wow. And then now it's oh, great, amazing. We now have a situation where the research is being duplicated across multiple labs because they don't know the other labs are doing it. And so it's oh, great. Now let's assume you need 100 major papers until you get AGI or whatever. Now instead of 3 labs that only have to do 33 papers and they all build on top of each other and it goes fast, what we have is 3 labs that have to do 100 papers each. And so now you've effectively tripled the amount of time it takes to get to AGI. Now, obviously, most papers are fake and there's dead ends and whatnot, and it might be fast to explore this way. But again, this has slowed down progress towards AGI a pretty considerable amount. And so I think you just kind of have a situation where it's capabilities are running out, and I hope we'll see this a tool. Right? AI is a tool that will help us transform unstructured data to structured data, and then from structured data to unstructured data. I hope we stop having delusions of AGI going on, because the delusions of AGI are kind of killing a whole bunch of stuff going on. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there. I will see you guys all next week. This is a short episode because there's less news. See ya.